Psychology Today has an article for us, Why Disagreement is a Stubborn Enemy of Listening. And I love a good story. And this, I was concerned the psychologist would just do some boring academic piece. But some great stories are in here. So we're going to examine some of these anecdotes, see how we feel about it, and then get into what he says is the key to actually listening well, okay? A few months ago, I was at a restaurant with my family. A heated argument erupted between the shift manager and a waiter when we sat down. From the tone of the exchange between them, it seemed like we'd arrived at a dispute that had started long before we arrived. The manager was furious at the waiter for breaking a tray with dishes, and he replied back to her, "Get out of my face." And she yelled, "That's it. I've had it with you." And she ordered him to put down his apron and told him his shift is over. It's all in front of the entire restaurant.
Wow.
The waiter stormed out of the restaurant, and we and the other customers felt uncomfortable from the incident.
Oh, yeah.
Some customers even wanted to complain to the owner of the restaurant. You guys ever seen something like that happen?
I don't think I can remember an argument like that. I have felt tension between a couple of the wait staff or between a manager and the waiter, but not to that degree.
Yeah, we were at a staff thing once, and Lauren leans over to me. She goes, "Oh, I can feel the workplace drama. It's here, workplace drama." There were some servers having a little bit of a
old tiff.
Yeah, but it was subtle, but it was there. This is intense, like legitimate get out.
That's scary.
It is scary. Mm-hmm. Now, he said, "I tried to analyze the situation, or more simply put, whose fault it was. The waiter was very rude, and what he said is not something you say to your manager, or any person for that matter. At the same time, I thought the shift manager acted unprofessionally by arguing with her employees in the middle of a restaurant. I also thought about how contagious emotions are. Even though my family and I were not part of the argument, it made us feel uncomfortable and left a negative feeling for a while." Can we place blame for anybody on this?
You can, to a degree, blame the manager who, being the highest authority there, should be the adult in the room and take the waiter into the back somewhere to have this discussion. She knows she's angry. She should know she's about to yell at him. Get it out of public sight.
Yeah.
And you probably know this waiter, the way he reacted, "Get out of my face." You probably know he's got an attitude issue as well. So you don't want that showing in public.
Yeah, and I think even the employee could have had if they would have been the bigger person, they could have said, "Can we have this conversation in the back?"
That would be excellent. You wouldn't expect that from the employee, but if they're more mature than their manager, yeah.
Well, coming up in just a minute, the same guy said he took that lesson with him to a family dinner with some relatives the next weekend. And that didn't go so well. Psychology Today has an article called Why Disagreement is a Stubborn Enemy of Listening. And since our society now really is just a series, like most of our entertainment's arguing. Like if I ever see a controversial social media post, I'm like, here we go. Grab the popcorn. I'm going to hit the comments button. We're going to see people throw it down like their life depends on it, So how can we do something different? Well, this guy shared a story about seeing an argument in a restaurant between some staff. And then he says, the following Friday, we had a big family dinner. I got to see relatives I had not seen for a while. It always makes me laugh to hear sentences like, "Wow, it's amazing how your girls have grown up so much." Of course they did. You haven't seen them in 3 years. During dinner, I had a disagreement with one of my relatives on a topic I have a lot of knowledge about. I started to get really upset when he criticized my perspective, especially when he barely provided any facts to support his argument.
Right.
Then something interesting happened. Although I had so much to say because I was angry, my mind closed and couldn't think clearly. It was as if everything I knew about the topic was erased, leaving mostly weak arguments in my head. It was like someone else was in my head handling this argument, and not in a good way. Moreover, my anger and willingness to explain to my relative why he was wrong prevented me from really listening to him. When he talked, I considered my next argument and nudged him for expressing such foolish thoughts. And then he says, when we drove home, my lovely wife validated my perspectives. She said, "You sounded pretty ignorant tonight."
Yes.
Only a wife could do something like that.
Right.
And
Sometimes you need those people in your life, though.
but that's the truth. I don't think she was rude for doing it. Sometimes you're thinking to yourself, man, I don't know if that went well. Boy, you sure sounded foolish tonight. Your spouse ought to have permission to talk to you like that.
Oh, yeah.
Don't you think?
With the love of Jesus, but yes.
Yeah, and if you understand that they love you, I don't think you would react super poorly. I might be hurt for a second, but I'd have to go, well, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Dana would say that to you, Ron?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No doubt.
I'm confident the two of you would say something like that.
That I would say that to Eddie?
Yeah.
Yes.
I know he would say to you.
Yeah, it's very rare for him to look that way in front of people. He's very thoughtful.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
But if he were, yes, I would tell
He's
him.
not very verbose.
Most likely it's going to be him telling me.
Really? It stings a little bit, but I
Yeah.
think you're right, Daria. We all need someone like that in our life. So he said, well, actually, before we get to that, what do you think he could do differently in this scenario to have it work out better?
I think it's great that he's just using hindsight to acknowledge what he did wrong. But he brings up some interesting points. Anger almost unlocks this like primal part of our brain where we just can't think clearly and then things escalate. So I think being aware of that is a great first step.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I hadn't thought through it as clearly as he said it, right? But he's not kidding. Your mind does close off.
Mhm.
Someone
Yeah.
says something ridiculous,
That's
and
a good
you're
way
like,
to put
oh, yeah? Well, you're the one who's dumb. And you're like, what am I, two? I don't. And he told, this dude's an expert in something, and he just forgot all of it.
Yeah,
Like
because someone made him so mad.
yeah, and it's disorienting when someone says something relatively ridiculous.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't even know how to debate with you because what you said is so dumb. You're thinking this in your head.
Yeah, or that like, how could you ever possibly think that?
Yeah.
And you're so angry.
Yes.
Yes.
I would hope that if you've thought it through, like he is doing as he writes the article, that can sink in to your reflexes a little bit. And the next time an opportunity like that comes up, rather than getting angry, you'll be able to mentally take a step back and say, okay, take a deep breath, work on proving his points wrong if they're truly wrong, or educating him with the correct facts if that's the case. But to put the anger aside and be more about winning a person to your point of view,
Yeah.
not winning the argument.
And I like that self-talk thing. I have to do that a lot. Like, okay, Brian, and we're calming down now. And we're calming down now.
You just don't lower your hands. Calm down.
Yeah, because that'll trigger myself with my own. When people, if you don't know, we all have buttons to push. But if somebody looks at me in a condescending, the look, and they take their hands and they raise them and they just slowly push, calm down. I just want to
Blow up.
I just want to, turn into the Tasmanian devil and just start freaking out.
Yeah.
So I think the challenge would be, though, we have to also tell ourselves, like in this case, does it matter if Cousin Eddie is off his rocker and is wrong?
No, not really.
That's kind of what I have to tell myself a lot of times. Like, it just like doesn't matter.
Yeah, like they can be
he
wrong.
can believe whatever he wants or think whatever he wants.
And it really
And it doesn't change anything for me.
Right.
Especially with those relatives that in this case you haven't seen in a long time,
Right.
you don't see very often. Just let them have their thing. It's going to stick with them more that you got angry.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're going to be thinking about this for the next 3 years and maybe you never see them again even.
Because some people I've learned even, they like to poke people to start arguments.
Mm-hmm.
Or they think it's funny to poke people to just kind of loosen up the room. My wife's grandfather is a pro at this. ask him not to do something, and he will intentionally do that thing.
Yeah, I had a friend like that. He would say things just to get a rise out of people.
Yes.
And he'd have like this little smirk on his face because he knew that he was being ridiculous, but he just liked to get people riled up.
Yeah. And it's not until you release that and like poke back that person is going to go, oh, okay, we're fine here.
Yeah.
So in this case, he kind of had to coach himself. And I'll give you the executive summary is essentially executive summary. It's like I'm an executive now. Hardly. But he just said I had to stop and actually focus on asking questions.
Good.
And really, he didn't say it this way, but what he did is, okay, this guy's an image bearer. He has value. He might sound loony at the moment. Maybe he has a point. And if I just ask enough good questions, I could understand what his point is and come to a different conclusion, maybe even think differently or better about this, right? Because that's what we think, right? Just because someone's argument's terrible doesn't mean they're wrong.
That's true.
It's a hard one to grasp because credibility seems to weaken a bit when someone is just like, I don't know, grasping at straws. But he essentially says you've got to start just asking questions with an open mind to try to understand. Now, the real trick is if you're really good at asking questions, you can actually use questions as a way to put someone in a corner, to shut down an argument. So you can't do that either.
Mm.
It has to really be I would like to understand your silly point. And maybe it's not silly. Wow, that's hard. But I think he's right.
Yeah.
But there are times, though, I would say, if it's crazy Cousin Eddie, it's like, come on. By the way, both of you, I'm mad at you. Jimmy is my favorite go-to. I can't say that. I'm thinking Cousin Eddie from National Lampoon.
Yeah, I know. That's okay.
And your husband's Eddie, and I'm just realizing I'm
That's
doing
okay.
this.
We'll just picture crazy Cousin Eddie from National Lampoons instead.
Yeah, like, just let it go. It's not even worth it at all. Asking questions and just laugh, We need to get better at these things.